Bullies tease a new black student without knowing she's a boxer. Have you ever wondered how a moment of humiliation can turn into a lesson that no one will ever forget? This is the story of Maya, a 16-year-old girl who faced not only teasing at her new school, but also the deep-rooted prejudice of a group of bullies who chose the wrong victim. What shocking secret did Maya hide behind her quiet smile? Stay tuned to Black Voices to find out. What they didn't know was that behind that discreet posture lurked a state boxing champion, ready to teach a lesson that would change the culture of that school forever. Get ready for a story of courage overcoming injustice that will make you rethink judging people by their appearance. Maya walked through the gates of Hamilton High School that September morning, with her heart racing. It was her first day after moving to the city, and she already knew that look. The whispers began as soon as she passed through the main hallway, her black skin contrasting with a sea of pale faces that watched her with a mixture of curiosity and something else, something she knew all too well. Her carefully groomed dreadlocks and impeccable uniform didn't stop the judgmental stares that followed her wherever she went. Could Maya survive the cruelty of her new school, or would she strike back in a way no one expected? Keep watching Black Voices to see the incredible twist. At the back of the room, Brad and his friends weren't trying to hide their laughter. They were the typical popular kids, soccer jocks, rich, and known for making life hell for newcomers. Their designer shirts and expensive sneakers reflected the privilege they carried like invisible armor. Maya ignored them, as her mother had always advised. "Keep your head up and focus on your goals," she would say. What no one there knew was that for the last 8 years, while other girls were doing ballet or playing volleyball, Maya had devoted every free moment to boxing, turning every obstacle into fuel to get stronger. Her hands, hidden under her baggy sweatshirt, or calluses from countless rounds on the punching bag. Her thin arms masked muscles forged over years of intense training. Every taunt she heard now was like the punches she had learned to dodge in the ring. You don't have to respond to everyone. Sometimes the best counterattack is to wait for the right moment, and her eyes, which now pretended not to notice the taunts, were the same ones that had already faced opponents twice her size in the ring and won. During the break, Brad and his 4 friends decided it was time to welcome the newcomer. The group moved through the corridors as if they owned the place, pushing smaller students out of the way. Maya was putting her books away in her locker when she sensed their approaching presence. The strong smell of expensive perfume announced their arrival before Brad even opened his mouth. "Hey, new girl," Brad called out, his voice laced with debauchery, "I think you went to the wrong school. The public school is on the other side of town." The corridor fell silent. Some students stopped to watch, others looked away, embarrassed but without the courage to interfere. Maya could feel the weight of dozens of stares on her, some with pity, others with morbid anticipation of what was to come. She closed the cupboard slowly, taking a deep breath as she did before every fight. She knew the moment would come, it always did. The question was, how would she respond this time? "Don't say you're afraid to answer," Brad continued, stepping closer. "Maybe she doesn't understand our language," another bully teased, drawing laughter from the group. Maya felt her blood boil in her veins, but she remained calm. Years in the ring had taught her that true power lies in choosing your fights. But Brad wasn't satisfied with her silence. With one swift movement, he hit the books Maya was holding, scattering them across the floor. "Oops," he said with false innocence, "I think you knocked something over." The corridor erupted in nervous laughter. What happened next would leave every single person in that corridor stunned, forever changing the dynamic of that school. To find out how Maya dealt with this situation and see the incredible twist in this story, keep watching. If you've been through something similar or know someone who has faced prejudice at school, leave a like and subscribe to Black Voices. This story will show you that sometimes strength comes from the most unexpected places, and that we should never judge a book by its cover, or a fighter by her silence. Maya slowly bent down to pick up her books, each movement calculated, as if she were in the ring studying her opponent. Brad's arrogant smile grew, interpreting her calmness as submission. He didn't realize he was confusing patience with weakness, a mistake many of her opponents had already made in the ring. "Let me help you," Brad said with false kindness, kicking one of the books away. The hall continued in tense silence, with only a few nervous laughs echoing off the walls. Among the spectators, a girl called Lena watched the scene with visible discomfort, her hands clenching the strap of her backpack tightly. Maya continued in silence, picking up her belongings one by one. Her movements were deliberate, controlled, like the ritual she performed before every fight. Her mind wandered to the words of her trainer: "True power lies not in how much strength you have, but in knowing when to use it." "Hey, Brad," interfered one of his friends, Jack, "maybe we should show her where the library is, in case she can read." The laughter grew, and Brad, encouraged by the audience, decided to go further. He moved closer, invading Maya's personal space. He began, his voice distilling venom, "people like you should be grateful to be able to study here. My father is one of the principals, and he always says that certain changes in the school are inevitable." The corridor became even quieter, the explicit prejudice in his words weighing down the air like lead. Maya finally stood up, her books organized in her arms. Her eyes met Brad's for the first time, and something in the intensity of that gaze made the bully's smile falter for a second. "People like me?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. "Yeah," Brad regained his confidence, taking a step forward, "people who don't belong here." He reached out to push Maya's shoulder, but his movement was stopped in midair by a firm hand that gripped his wrist. Time seemed to freeze in that corridor. Maya had blocked Brad's movement with a precision that only comes from years of training. Her posture changed subtly, her feet planted on the ground at exactly the right distance, her body slightly tilted, a position any fighter would instantly recognize. "Don't touch me," Maya said, her voice low but carrying authority. Brad pulled his arm back, surprised by the strength of her grip. For the first time, a shadow of doubt crossed his face. "What do you think you're doing?" He tried to maintain his pose, but his voice betrayed a touch of uncertainty. His friend shifted uncomfortably, sensing the change in atmosphere. Maya stepped forward, and Brad instinctively stepped back. "You talked about people who don't belong here," she said, her voice clear enough for the whole corridor to hear, "but you know what really doesn't belong anywhere? Prejudice and bullying." The bell rang, making everyone jump, but no one moved. The students were mesmerized by the scene unfolding in front of them. Brad, sensing that he was losing control of the situation, did the only thing he knew to do: he doubled the bet. "And what are you going to do about it?" he teased, thrusting his chest forward in a display of adolescent machismo. "Are you going to cry to the board, or maybe call your ghetto friends?" It was at that moment that Maya smiled, a smile that made Brad take another involuntary step backwards. "No," she replied calmly, "I'm going to show you exactly what years of boxing can teach you about respect." The hallway erupted in murmurs. Brad visibly paled, but now it was too late to back down. The confrontation that was about to take place would change the balance of power in that school forever, and no one who witnessed that moment would ever forget the day they underestimated the new girl. What happened next was so fast that some students swore they had blinked and missed the action. Brad, trying to save his reputation, stepped forward with a clumsy shove. Maya moved like water, deflecting the attack with a fluidity that only years of training can develop. The move reminded everyone of Muhammad Ali's viral videos, that graceful dance that made opponents look slow and clumsy. "Last chance," Maya warned, now in fighting stance, her hands raised in a perfect guard. The calluses on her fingers, marks of endless hours on the punching bag, now visible to all. "Apologize and leave." The students formed a circle around them, cell phones already pointed to capture the moment. The air was charged with tension, every breath audible in the sepulchral silence of the corridor. Brad laughed, but it was a nervous laugh, the kind of sound someone makes when they're trying to mask their fear. "Do you really think you can?" Before he could finish his sentence, Maya executed a perfect jab that stopped inches from his nose. The wind from the blow ruffled the bully's perfectly groomed hair. Brad staggered backwards, stumbling over his own feet, the fear finally visible in his eyes, the mask of arrogance completely destroyed. 8 years of boxing, Maya said, maintaining her posture, her body radiating a confidence that came from hundreds of rounds, from countless victories and defeats that had shaped her. "Junior state champion for the last 3. Do you want to keep testing your luck?" Her voice remained calm, controlled, but carried an authority that silenced the entire hallway. The only sound was the air conditioning humming above them. Jack, the first to recover his voice, pulled Brad by the arm, sweat dripping down the bully's forehead, staining his designer t-shirt. "Dude, let's go, she's a professional wrestler." But Brad was paralyzed, his world as an untouchable bully crumbling in front of everyone. Years of dominance through fear were being destroyed in a matter of minutes. "You can't hit me," he tried, his voice shaking like a leaf in the wind. "My father is principal, you'd be expelled." His words echoed down the corridor, sounding more like a plea than a threat. Maya lowered her fists and smiled. It was a quiet smile, the kind of expression that only those who know their true worth can give. "Exactly, and that's why you're going to listen to me now." She took a step forward, and this time Brad didn't flinch, fear kept him pinned to the ground. "I could humiliate you here in front of everyone. It would be easy. But you know what's harder? Choosing not to fight when you can." The crowd of students was absolutely silent, absorbing every word as if they were witnessing a historic moment, and they were. Maya continued, "Boxing didn't just teach me how to fight, it taught me discipline, respect, and most importantly, when not to use my strength. So here's what's going to happen: you're going to stop bullying people, not just me, but everyone in this school." Lena, the girl who had been watching everything from the beginning, felt something awaken inside her. Years of silence in the face of injustice finally found a voice. She stepped forward, her hand shaking but her voice firm. "She's right, Brad. No more bullying, no more prejudice. We're tired of being afraid." Other students began to agree, murmurs of approval spreading through the corridor like a wave of collective courage. Brad looked around, realizing that he was losing not just a fight, but all his power. The empire of fear he had built was crumbling before his eyes. His friends retreated, leaving him alone in the center of the circle with Maya. The bully who had always thought himself untouchable was finally getting a taste of his own medicine. "What if I don't stop?" he tried, one last provocation, but his voice had already lost all its arrogance, sounding empty and pathetic in the silent corridor. Maya moved closer, speaking low enough for only him to hear, each word laden with the weight of her past fights. "Then next time, I won't stop the punch." She turned away, picked up her backpack, and started walking to class, leaving Brad there, standing in the hallway, confronting the consequences of his actions for the first time. As she walked away, the students made way, some smiling, others still processing what they had witnessed. Lena ran to catch up with her, her eyes shining with admiration. "That was amazing," she exclaimed. "How did you manage to stay calm? How did you learn to be so strong?" Maya smiled, adjusting the strap of her backpack on her shoulder, her calluses rubbing against the fabric. "Years of learning that true strength lies not in how many blows you can deliver, but in how many you choose not to." That afternoon changed Hamilton High School forever. News of Maya and Brad's confrontation spread like wildfire, first through the corridors, then on social media. Videos of the moment she blocked Brad's blow and executed the perfect jab went viral in school groups, accompanied by captions such as "Bully meets his kryptonite" and "When prejudice meets an uppercut of reality." Over the next few days, a subtle transformation began to take place. Maya noticed the looks on their faces changing. They were no longer ones of judgment or pity, but of admiration and respect. During lunch, Lena invited her to sit at her table, and soon other girls joined them. "Do you train every day?" asked Sarah, one of her new friends, as they shared fries. Maya smiled, wiping her hands on her napkin. 6 days a week, 3 hours a day. I started after I was bullied at my old school. My father took me to the gym and told me I needed to learn to defend myself." "And now you're a state champion," added Lena, still impressed. Maya shrugged, but her smile was genuine. "Boxing taught me much more than self-defense. It taught me about perseverance, about fighting for my dreams, about never letting anyone define who I am." Brad, on the other hand, strolled through the corridors, his aura of intimidation completely dissipated. His friends began to distance themselves, ashamed of being associated with his previous behavior. In history class, a week after the incident, he surprised everyone by raising his hand during a discussion on civil rights. I wanted to apologize," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "not just to Maya, but to everyone I've ever bullied. What happened made me realize how wrong I was." The silence in the room was palpable. Maya, sitting a few desks back, watched intently. "My father always taught me that power means controlling others through fear," Brad continued, his words laden with regret, "but Maya showed me that true power is knowing when not to use your strength." I'd never been humiliated before, and that made me understand how I made others feel. The teacher, Mrs. Martinez, smiled gently. Thank you for your honesty, Brad. Recognizing our mistakes is the first step to changing them. Maya felt a lump in her throat, remembering her coach's words, sometimes the greatest victory is turning an enemy into an ally. After class, Brad waited for Maya in the hallway, his eyes red as if he had been crying. I'm really sorry, he said, holding out his hand. You could have humiliated me, you could have hurt me, and it would have been fair, but you chose to teach me a better lesson. Maya squeezed his hand, feeling the tension of years of conflict dissolve in that grip. We all deserve a second chance, she replied. It's what we do with it that matters. Over the next few weeks, Hamilton High School was transformed. Brad started an anti-bullying support group, using his former influence to promote positive change. Maya began teaching basic self-defense classes after school, teaching other students not only to stand up for themselves, but to believe in themselves. You know what's most amazing? Lena commented one day as they looked out over the schoolyard, you didn't just stand up to the bully, you changed the whole school. Now people are no longer afraid to be who they are. Maya smiled, observing a diverse group of students laughing together where before there had been clear divisions. That's why we fight, she replied, not to hurt, but to change, not to divide, but to unite. Every punch I threw at the punching bag, every hour of training, every competition, everything prepared me not to fight, but to make a difference. Maya's story reminds us that sometimes we need to face our fears in order to inspire others to do the same, that real strength lies not in how many we can knock down, but in how many we can lift up, and that real change begins when we choose to use our power not to intimidate, but to transform. If you've ever faced prejudice or bullying, know that your strength lies not in taking revenge, but in turning pain into purpose. As Maya showed us, sometimes the most powerful blow is the one we choose not to deliver. If this story has touched your heart, or you know someone who needs to hear this message of strength and overcoming, share it with your friends. Don't forget to leave your like, subscribe to Black Voices, and activate the bell for more inspiring stories like this one. Tell me in the comments, have you ever lived through a situation where you chose to use your strength to transform rather than hurt? Your experience could inspire others who are going through difficult times right now.